Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Stabilize Your Blood Sugar for Mood Balance and Longevity. Identify and reverse insulin resistance. I am your moderator, Nicole. Before I turn this over to our wonderful presenter from Philadelphia Integrative Medicine, a quick announcement. To submit a question for Linda to answer at the end of the webinar, please use the Q&A button on your Zoom screen. Also, to let you know, we will have this recording sent to your email tomorrow. Before we begin our presentation tonight, I would like to start with a little centering. I invite you to get comfortable in your chair or on your couch, wherever you are. And just feel your body, just feel where you're seated. Maybe you feel your feet on the floor. Maybe you feel your legs pressed against something. Maybe you feel the drop in your shoulders away from your ears just to relax a little. And I invite you to begin by feeling your breath without any changes. Just feel that you are breathing right here, right now. Maybe you can feel the breath coming into the nose, going down into your throat. You may even feel the rise and fall of your collarbones or your ribs. Again, without changing or having any thoughts about the breath, I invite you just to feel the breath in your body. If you'd like to take a nice deep inhale through the nose, you can do that now. And exhale out through the mouth. You can start to soften the space around your eyes and your jaw. And again, notice if your shoulders are hunched up and try to relax them a little bit more. Maybe you feel your seat again, wherever that may be. Maybe you notice your feet, your legs, your hands, your arms, your belly, your back, your head, your forehead. And now try to notice all those spaces together as one body. I invite you to do a little exercise. And I invite you to take 10 nice deep breaths. But before you do that, allow every exhale to be just a release of the day that you've had today. And just maybe you start from the beginning when you woke up or when you got to work or wherever you had to be today. And allow every hour of the day to just melt away with every one of your exhales. Each exhale is bringing you closer and closer to the time right now, right where you need to be. Feel your body, feel your breath, and give yourself this next moment of just quiet and being present. You can slowly flutter your eyes if you close them, maybe take a little stretch and arrive where you need to be and enjoy our talk to come. So before we begin our presentation tonight, I'd like to formally introduce Linda Sherlin. Linda is a nurse practitioner here at PIM. She has been a family nurse practitioner for 21 years. She received her Master's of Science in Nursing from the University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio. Linda also completed her Integrative Medicine Fellowship at Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine at the University of Arizona in 2017. And now I present Linda Sherlin.
Thanks so much, Nicole, and thank you for that beautiful meditation. You know, I have to tell you guys selfishly, it's like the meditation before a talk is just such a gift to me to center and as Nicole said, be where I need to be, and it's with you here this evening. So welcome. Dr. Tetlow sends her regrets. She got unexpectedly sick, something physicians usually don't do. But I'm so grateful that she's choosing to care for herself tonight. And Nicole and I are so happy to be with you. So I'd like to just introduce PIM and integrative medicine a little bit. We'll talk about it some more as we go through the talk this evening. Integrative medicine is healing-oriented medicine directed to the whole person. And when we think about integrative and functional medicine, we think about our system, not a set of symptoms or a piece of a body, but an entire system. It includes all aspects of our lifestyle. It's really based in a therapeutic relationship with a practitioner. We believe that relationship is key to healing. It's informed by evidence. We include all the appropriate therapies. Evidence-based practice is very important. We treat at PIM, we treat all forms of chronic illness. We are not primary care, although we do treat many primary care issues, all forms of chronic illness. We're completely telehealth at this point in time. People in Pennsylvania are eligible for insurance reimbursement. Couple of things we do offer is a free 20-minute consultation with either myself or Zoe Phillips, our physician assistant. That's for you to kind of speak with us and see if Philadelphia Integrative Medicine would be a good fit for you. If you would like to become a patient, there's no commitment and there's no charge. You can go to our website and sign up for that free consultation. We also have a newsletter, and we'd love for you to go to the website and sign up for that if you're interested. As Nicole said, you're going to get an email tomorrow with a recording with the webinar. But you can also go to our website and see any of our past webinars that, that if you're interested, please feel free to do that, or invite friends or family. So now we have a poll.
Oh, yes. Let's start the poll. These are yes or no questions, just something that we want to find out about you. And take your time. We'll do this for about a minute or until we get about 50 to 60% answers. Oh, they're coming in now. Do you see it? Are you a current PIM patient? Are you considering becoming a patient? Do you live in Pennsylvania? Or you're a healthcare provider?
I can't see the numbers coming up, Nicole, so I'm gonna have to count on you to do that.
Yes, I'll tell you.
Okay.
We're almost at 65% actually.
Wow, you guys are doing great. Thank you so much. We love this information. This is going to be a bit of an interactive, a little bit more interactive talk tonight than maybe we've done in the past. And so we'll have a few polls.
Yes, and a chance to actually chat and share your thoughts with Linda and everyone else.
That's going to be a new thing we're trying.
Yes.
Nicole and I, we're kind of going rogue a little bit tonight, y'all.
All right, we are at 70%. So I'm going to end the poll now. And actually, we have 92% of people that are not PIM patients. So welcome to our webinar. And we have 31% that are interested in becoming a PIM patient. We are at about 63% that are not in Pennsylvania, which I find so fascinating. It's good that we can do these webinars and you can be at home and comfortable. And we are about 50% yes, with healthcare providers.
Okay. It's always fun.
Yes.
Now, this is where Nicole and I are going to try something different. This is a question that I always ask my patients when they come into my treatment room, exam room. And I want to ask you tonight, I do this at other talks when I've done live talks, but we've never tried it this way. Nicole's going to open up the chat. But what I'm wondering tonight is, what are you wanting for yourself? And I'd love it if you'd just be willing to think about that for just a minute and answer in the chat.
All right, the chat is now open.
Thanks, Allison. Anybody else willing to share what you're wanting for yourself tonight? Oh, you guys are doing a great job. Great. So I think, maybe you all are seeing these people wanting to avoid becoming insulin resistant. Some of you providers are wanting more tools for your insulin resistance patients. Ideas to deal with prediabetes and blood sugar. I love the one that the question is vague, and the question is vague. And oh I'll talk to you a minute about that. Hearing what we're doing in our practice for our patients with blood sugar and insulin resistance. Deal with fatigue and reactive hypoglycemia. Learn more about nutrition. See if it's possible to reverse a risk for diabetes, high sugar but good A1C. Better understand my body and certain foods. Optimal health and be the best I can. Somebody wants information for their patients. To know I'm doing all I can to protect myself. Peace, calm, moving forward. I love that. To better understand how to advise my patients with anxiety, how to eat to mitigate their anxiety. That's wonderful. A whole picture of insulin resistance and tools. Feel good most of the time. Learning holistic ways, a better relationship with food in general. Got a few more down here.
I like this last one. I would like
Oh,
to know that she is awesome.
oh, that's very special, Catherine. Oh, you can't see any of your answers, just the own. Is there any way that we can, well, okay then, guys, we're gonna have, thanks for letting us know that. That might be something for next time that we work on to figure that out. They need to switch to all panelists and attendees for chat messages. Oh, like in the little arrow where you put your chat, you can switch to panelists and attendees and see everything. So thanks so much. And I want to tell you why I asked this question. When we think about healing and when we think about, quote, healthcare, our traditional healthcare system, what I think often happens is, you know, we walk in and say, this is what's wrong. And we get handed a prescription, or we get handed, you know, especially when we think about insulin resistance, you know, it's like, well, you just need to exercise and lose weight. And so when we think about it, and so it's handed to us and we can decide whether we do it or not. But when we think about what we're wanting for ourselves, and the reason I love to ask this to a patient, I have one of my little patients, he's 15. I won't say little, he's young, a young patient. He's 15, and normally I meet with him and his mom, and I always ask what he's wanting for himself. And the last time I was to see him, he sent his mom, and he said, tell Linda, I'm wanting to sleep late today. And so he was able to say what he wanted for himself and to take care of himself. And so I'm going to invite you as we go through to think about, it might be what you're wanting for yourself as far as your health goes. It might be what you're wanting for your patients, you know, but when we think about what we're wanting for ourselves, it becomes intrinsic. It's not extrinsic. It's not someone bringing it to the outside. It's us bringing it from the inside. So when we hear new information, like the talk tonight, if there are things that you're wanting, then it's like, oh, I can bring this in because it's what I want. It's not what someone else told me I needed, or I must, or I should. It's a little bit of a shift, and it's really the way I love to be with my patients. So I think we can go to that next slide and go ahead and show that, because I love that picture, Nicole. So I want to tell you a little bit about my story with insulin resistance. This is me and my dog, Sam, and we were out taking a walk at the Delaware Water Gap. And it was a great day, and it was beautiful. And I'm not much for posting pictures of myself, but I love this picture. And so it doesn't really have anything to do with insulin resistance, except that I was out moving. When I started working on this talk, Zoe, our PA, put a lot of slides together, and I kept kind of wrestling with it and wrestling with what I wanted to share with you tonight. A couple of weeks ago, I woke up at about 1:30 in the morning and I started writing. And I began to understand why this was such a challenging talk for me. I'm a person with insulin resistance. I normally don't self-reveal a lot about myself, but I'm going to share a little bit with y'all tonight because it was really profound what I learned in early morning hours. I began just writing a little bit about what I wanted to talk about. And what I began to realize that probably my insulin resistance started when I was in 7th grade. And we had a snack bar at school. It wasn't the cafeteria or our mom's lunch anymore. We had a snack bar. And so our breakfast, me and my friends, our kind of standard breakfast was a Dr. Pepper and a little package of white powdered donuts. And that's what we would have for lunch, for breakfast. For lunch, we would have a Frito pie. Now, I'm from Texas, and I don't know if you know what Frito pie is, but Frito pie means they take a bag of Fritos, they slice it open long ways, and they put chili in it. We would have that with another Dr. Pepper for lunch. And then wonder why we didn't feel good. Me and my friends, we were taking advanced level classes, and we kind of didn't know we didn't feel good. But I just wonder what it had been like had we been over in the a la carte line having some salads. But that's not what we were doing. And in high school, those powdered donuts began showing up on my body. And, you know, from time to time would feel like I battled with my weight. And when I say I battled with my weight, I'm not saying that was because I was overweight, but I never could accept where I was. Came from a farm family. We had a garden, ate a lot of good, healthy food growing up. I learned to cook at a young age. But still always struggled. Weight was a thing in my family. There was never a real acceptance. And that has continued for most of my life. And you know, I look back at pictures and things and I see there is not an overweight woman standing there. But that was my perception and my vision and my fear. And so, you know, I've struggled with that. And so this has been something that's important. You know, the good news for me was I love to cook. Now I had my years of baking and those things, but as I've grown, became a nurse, began to learn about nutrition, I've learned to improve that nutrition, to put more plants in my diet, to take more of the sugar out, to eat less and less processed foods. And probably about 8 years ago, we're going to kind of fast forward. About 8 years ago, I went to work for a company that was started by a nephrologist who had dialysis clinics all over San Antonio. And the story he told was he walked in one day to the dialysis clinic to see his patients, and he had 15 patients and he had 25 legs. Not everyone there had both of their legs. And he looked around and he said, you know, we've got to do something different. And he felt like the place to start was with nutrition. And so he basically started a practice in San Antonio that was directed at helping people to heal and to begin to address weight concerns, to address food, to learn to eat better. And that was very powerful for me as a nurse practitioner in family practice. I'd worked a lot with people on their nutrition, but it wasn't until I began to work with this company that I began to learn more and more about insulin resistance, and also learned the power of food. So we were a conventional practice, integrative in some of our approaches, but not the same way that we practice at Philadelphia Integrative Medicine. We were very much about having extended appointments with patients. We had, you know, we spent time, we listened to our patients' stories just the way we do. And the reason I wanted to share my story tonight because I do know we have quite a few practitioners here. We also have people here who maybe have not felt like you could tell your story when you saw your healthcare provider. If there was only 10 minutes in an appointment, like I had to give my patients when I was in family practice, I didn't have a lot of time to hear your story. And so that's why I wanted to share a little bit of mine and see if it sparked anything in you. And we're going to talk a little bit tonight about some of these things that I've learned. And the amazing thing was, without extra supplements, without anything really fancy except talking to people about their nutrition, I began to see people reversing their insulin resistance and becoming insulin sensitive. So when you're searching for clues and we're thinking about insulin resistance, are you having increasing fatigue and low energy? Do you feel hangry sometimes? You know that if I don't eat, I'm going to kill somebody. Do you feel a slump or a dip in your energy after eating? Have your clothes gotten a little tighter? What about your belt? Have you been diagnosed in the past with polycystic ovarian syndrome or fatty liver disease? Have you noticed any skin tags or darkening skin in the creases of your neck, your groin, or in your armpits? There are not really symptoms as such of insulin resistance, but there are clues. And these are some great clues to be watching for and to be noticing. So in insulin resistance, and I'm going to share with you, there's some newer theories coming out, but I'm going to share with you pretty much the tried and true theory that our cells need insulin for fuel. In all of our cells, we need our insulin and it needs to come in. And here's a little picture. But in insulin resistance, the cells are resistant and it causes a problem with the insulin binding. And so the insulin cannot get into the cell. Some look at it like the insulin is the key that opens the cell to let the glucose in. But first, let's look at the players. What is glucose? Glucose is a simple sugar. It's a key energy source for all living organisms. Sources can be any carbohydrate. And here we see some complex carbohydrates, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, breads. All of these are carbohydrates, and those are complex carbohydrates. Yogurt, milk, all of these are your more complex, meaning they have fiber with them. They're more challenging for the body to break down. And then we see the picture of these processed sugars, the simple carbs. Those are like, bam, you just got your shot of sugar. There's no fiber there. There's no fat. There's nothing to keep that sugar from just kind of exploding. And our bodies convert 100% of carbohydrates that we eat into glucose. Now, a lot of times people think, well, I need to be on a low carb diet. And what I think is really more important is that we cut those simple carbs, that we cut those simple sugars. So let's take a look at insulin. Oh, Nicole moved her slide. I didn't move mine. Insulin's a hormone made by the pancreas that helps maintain our appropriate blood glucose levels. After eating, the beta cells in the pancreas release the insulin into the bloodstream. The insulin binds to insulin receptors on the cell and it allows the glucose to move into the cell to be used for energy. With more glucose inside the cell, when it moves out of external and moves into the cell, then the insulin lowers back down to match the blood sugar levels. Insulin resistance happens when the key, the insulin, is not really working. Now, my mentor, Dr. Player, that I worked with in San Antonio, would talk about it like an old, like on an old house, so skeleton keys and the lock. and that lock gets really loose. And so as we have more fat in our liver, more fat in the body, we can have this insulin resistance. And so we put out more insulin from the pancreas. The beta cells have to put out more insulin to try to allow the glucose to get into the cells. And so when there's not enough insulin, the sugar will then stay in the blood instead of getting into the cells. So the pancreas keeps putting out the insulin to try to allow the blood sugar to normalize. Now, this can also be a challenge, like when we're thinking about diet sodas and you're taking in something sweet, so you're triggered to release insulin. So what'll happen, we'll release insulin, but there's no glucose there. So when there's no glucose, then our blood sugar drops, we get hungry, because when there's excess insulin, it signals our body to bring in more food because our blood sugars drop. And so this can be that really catch-22 of the insulin resistance. We think, well, I just shouldn't eat so much. But the problem is not necessarily, so what'll happen is people stop eating. And they think that's going to help with the insulin loss and, with weight loss and insulin sensitivity. But that's not really what happens. What we want to do is begin to stabilize some. So let's talk a little bit about the physical implications of insulin resistance. One, insulin it's inflammatory when it's not balanced. So when we have too much insulin, we can have inflammation, and this can be the root cause of many autoimmune diseases, many chronic diseases, including autoimmune diseases. And we'll often see, going along with insulin resistance, especially as it progresses, we'll see more and more effects of the inflammation. We can begin to have multi-organ damage. Things that can be affected first are kidneys and eyes. That's why the nephrologist really felt like he needed to come way back from type 2 diabetes to really begin to work with the insulin resistance. Sugar can work on the reward pathways and lower our dopamine. The more sugar we have, we can feed yeast and candida. We see with our GI map, we can see candida in the gut. Also, arterial walls can become inflamed and thicker and stiffer, raises our blood pressure, damage to the heart over time. 50% of Americans have diabetes or prediabetes. Wonder how many more have insulin resistance. Based on the patients I see, I would say many of us do. The great news is that there are many things that we can do about it. Now, we're going to have a little poll here. This is my grandson. He had just gotten out of the shower, Hayden, and his shirt says, "I will always be your friend." And I want to ask you a little bit about, what you think about how you're feeling and your body. So Nicole, if you could open our poll up. So these are just yes, no questions, and I'm interested to see how you're thinking. I feel great most of the time. I love my body. I'm happy with my body. I have regular routines that nourish my body. Host and panelists can't vote. Oh, oops, sorry.
I was thinking the same thing, but I said I'll just wait here and wait for everyone else's answers.
The reason I put my little Hayden up here was because, kiddos, they don't worry about their bodies. They're out there running and he's playing and they climb on things and they don't worry about that. They're very comfortable in their little bodies. And I think about, the story that I told, that as I got older, I got less and less comfortable in my body. and I was doing less and less and less things to nourish it. Not because of anything other than I was a kid. I was doing what all the kids did. And, you know, and there was no one to quite tell me different at the time.
All right, Linda, I'm going to end the poll now.
Okay.
Share the results.
What do we look? So this is good. So 53% feel great most of the time. I love it. 63% of you love your bodies. 55% are happy. So we're kind of split on whether we're happy. I have, oh, look at you guys. 82% have regular routines that nourish your bodies. I love that. And, you know, as you're putting any questions in the Q&A, you know, mention some of those regular routines that you're doing that really nourish your body. I'd love to hear about that. And put it in the Q&A. I think that'll be the great place to do that. So the things we want to talk about is insulin resistance is the precursor to prediabetes, to type 2 diabetes. So we want to think about going upstream to prevent the disease. Now, I'm going to focus more on nutrition this evening. And then in January, I'm going to have a second part to this talk. And we're going to talk more about supplements and movement. You know, just stay tuned. But I want to talk a little bit about testing. And in my next talk, I'll talk a little bit more about the functional medicine testing. But what I want to talk about tonight is testing that we do at Philadelphia Integrative Medicine. We do use conventional lab testing, and it's testing that you can get from your physician that you can offer to your patients, even if you're not in functional medicine practice and you don't have access to any specialty type of testing. If you're using, this is insurance-based testing. So of course, the first two things that are pretty common are hemoglobin A1C. A hemoglobin A1C is a 90-day average of your blood sugar. 90-day average. Fasting glucose is just a glucose at one point in time. That's why we make you fast before you go to the lab. So we can see what that glucose is before you've eaten anything. Our range of our hemoglobin A1C is anywhere from 4.8 to 5.6. Once we get above 5.6, we consider that you're moving into the pre-diabetic range. Ideal is around 5%. Our fasting glucose, we like to see between 65 and 99. I really like to see it between 70 and 80s. You know, when it starts moving into the 90s, I'm really thinking about insulin resistance. Now, these can also be influenced by stress. We think about when we have increased stress, we need more glucose, and that can raise our hemoglobin A1C. And there's more information that we need. So this is some additional conventional lab testing that's not normally done. And if, depending on who you've seen, you may, but probably not have ever had a fasting insulin. When we look at the reference range from our labs, you'll see a reference range of 0 to 25. So, you know, if you got that back, you may say, wow, I'm a 10, I'm doing great. Well, ideal fasting insulin is a range of 5 to 7. When we began to move above 8 and 9, I'm beginning to think about insulin resistance. Now, remember when we talked about it, we talked about the fact that as the cells become more resistant, you need more insulin to get the glucose into the cell. So if we're seeing more and more insulin on this fasting insulin, we know that your cells are not as efficient. The other thing we want to look at is like a low dense cholesterol, your triglycerides. Triglycerides, I say, those go up from the white stuff, sugar and all the white processed foods. And if the triglycerides are elevated, we're thinking insulin resistance. So remember I said when I was back in San Antonio treating patients, the best tool I had was nutrition, to talk about nutrition. Now, I worked in a clinic. One of the clinics I worked in was retired firemen and policemen. And we would get all these labs that I just showed you. And then they would come in and sit down with me and we'd review the labs. And one retired fireman came in and he said, "All righty, Linda, tell me, what is it I can't eat?" And I said, "Well, you can eat anything you want." He looked at his wife and he said, "All right, I owe you $20. He was quite sure I was going to tell him what he could not eat. And remember that intrinsic part where we started at the first, what are you wanting for yourself? If the first thing I tell you as my patient, if I tell myself is what I can't have, that's probably the first thing I'm going to want to have. So when we're thinking about what we're wanting for ourselves, we want to be ready. So we've got another poll for you. Some thoughts about food. I'd love to know about if you think you have a wonderful relationship with food, and if you know the foods that nourish your body and you eat them regularly. How are we doing there, Nicole?
They are coming in very fast.
All right.
They're already past 50%.
All right, I got quite a few more slides and I just looked at the time, Nicole.
Oh, okay. We're doing good, Linda. Don't even worry about it.
Okay. Well, I want to make sure you guys get to answer questions. Please be sure and put your questions in the Q&A.
Okay,
So what do we get?
Looks like we're all done. So I'm going to share these results.
So 63% have a wonderful relationship with food, and 88% of the people that responded feel that you know the foods that nourish your body and eat them regularly. I love that. You know, the thing that I think is most important is that we don't walk in and say, "Oh, we got to take everything out." But like my patient that came in, and what do I have to give up now? When we start adding in the good stuff, the processed foods are not as inviting. When we pull the sugar out of our diet, there was somebody who was wanting to know about foods that affect anxiety. And I tell you what, I think the major food that affects anxiety is sugar. And so diets that are high in carbohydrates, particularly those simple carbs, this is kind of what we just said, you know, and eventually what's going to happen is that pancreas is going to burn out. Over the time, you keep asking and asking and asking for more insulin, those beta cells, eventually they get tired and they burn out. And that's when we have to take insulin, have type 2 diabetes. Look at our next slide. I kind of love this next one. The effects of food on sugar. So you see here, the green dotted line are your carbohydrates, bread, rice, cereals, pasta, more simple carbs especially. These are foods that don't have the fiber, like a sweet potato has a lot of fiber. Oatmeal, a lot of fiber if you're using rolled oats or steel cut oats. And then you look, proteins, they affect the blood sugar over a longer amount of time, and fats. So when you have your carbohydrates and you have fats and protein, it kind of flattens out that curve. So you don't get as much of a hit with your sugar. So I think these carbohydrates are not all created equal. Yeah, there you go, Nicole. I'm going to kind of speed up just a bit. So the foods that you see on the left, these are those carbs. Look how beautiful that looks. Look how much prettier that is. Now, of course, the picture's prettier, but how do you make a diet soda or canned soda pretty? It's just not. But look at these beautiful plants. Those are the carbohydrates that we're wanting. Now, I think a great resource when we're thinking about foods, we can go to the next slide, Nicole, is Glycemic Index. And so you can go to glycemicindex.com. And what we're looking for when we're thinking about insulin resistance is foods that have a lower glycemic index. And so if you go to glycemicindex.com, I just put the chart up here to show you. But if you go to glycemicindex.com, you can literally put in the food and it will tell you the glycemic index. So if you're wondering, hey, I'm going to eat an apple, or I'm going to eat a payday bar, I wonder what the glycemic index is. And for all of you like who know the good foods and are eating them, you know, you may not even, oh my gosh, I'd never put a payday bar in. But sometimes it's interesting to look and see what's going on there. So if you're interested in, learning more about the glycemic index and working with foods, I love having a nutritionist. Erin Arikar is our nutritionist, our integrative nutritionist in our team, and she can help teach about glycemic index, help identify behaviors and triggers for eating, and then help you brainstorm and implement unique food plans, targets to increasing your insulin sensitivity, increasing nutrients, and improving those numbers. We all talk about nutrition, but having a nutritionist to work with, to me, is just an amazing gift. And I know we've kind of gone through the food things quickly, and we can go to that next slide. You know, diet isn't the only cause of insulin resistance, but it's certainly a big contributor. Food is also a wonderful healer and a restorer of insulin sensitivity. Now, next time, we're going to talk about causes other than nutrition, such as nutrition deficiencies, cell integrity. We're going to talk about a little bit about specialty testing, and then supplements to support insulin sensitivity. And I want to talk a little bit about movement too. The more muscle we build, the more insulin sensitive our cells become. I got one last poll for you. This is an up close and personal of Sam. And Sam is wanting to know, do you feel like you have a better understanding of insulin resistance? And do you have thoughts about changes that you might want to make that would nourish your body or improve your insulin resistance? So if you can go ahead and answer that, keep putting in your questions.
We're doing good so far.
All right, thanks, Nicole. I love the participation. And you know what, guys? We save the questions. So knowing that we're going to have another talk coming, we're going to save these questions. And if they don't get answered tonight, I will make sure that I put them within our next presentation. Even if you have more questions about food, nutrition, you know, feel free to ask those and I'll work those in to our next talk. I want to make sure your questions get answered.
Okay, it looks like we're about done. Let me share these results.
Okay. Oh, wow. Thanks. 83% feel like you have a better insight into insulin resistance, and 93% of you that answered are having thoughts about what you might do. That to me makes the whole talk worth it. That's what I have a huge passion about this. And part of that passion is just because I've seen the impact that nutrition and movement can make on insulin resistance. So while you guys are putting your questions in, maybe we can, we've got some things to share. Nicole, are you going to talk about our call to action?
Yes, I'm here to talk about call to action. And if you enjoyed our talk tonight, we invite you to share PIM with your loved ones. Anyone you think that can benefit from these talks from our website, maybe a free consultation, as Linda spoke of earlier today, our free 20-minute consultation with either Linda or Zoe Phillips. We have also a resources page for not only practitioners only, but we also have many pages for patients to come. And don't forget, as a practitioner, you can be a patient here at PIM. And if you like this, remember to sign up for our newsletter. A few announcements. Our next talk, Meet Me Upstream and Reverse Insulin Resistance, will be January 20th, 2021. Yes, 2021. We definitely invite that to come. And that again will be 7:30 to 9 p.m. Every month, Dr. Chetlow hosts Healthcare Workers Integrative Professionals Group. It is a Zoom meeting the first Monday of every month. This is listed on our events page. It is from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. And you just go to our events page, register, and you'll get the link. That's the next day. And Linda will talk about our clinician mentoring.
Dr. Tetlow offers clinician mentoring. And so we have several forms of that. There's, because I know we have some clinicians on tonight. And the point of the mentoring is to help people make a full clinical and personal transition into integrative medicine. And you may want to just be making a transition yourself. A great way to begin to think about this and talk about this is to join us in our integrative providers group. It's a wonderful place to begin exploring. But the mentoring is one-on-one. And there can be hourly mentoring, but we also have a mentoring program. And if you're interested in that, please go look at our website. And you can schedule a 20-minute consult with Dr. Tetlow herself and discuss that with her. So let's take a look at our questions. I love great information that everyone put in, and I'm going to share as much as I can and answer as many questions. What herbs are available for keeping blood sugar in check? We're going to really talk about that more next time. So if we could, Laura, I'd like to hold that to our next talk. That's what we'll be talking about there. Mary's asking, does stevia as a sweetener cause the same response of insulin production that simple carbs causes? You know, I think it can raise insulin because it is sweet, and it can, and so it's signaling the body that they're sweet. And so that's where, you know, if you use a little bit of sweetener, sometimes it's even better to use maybe a teaspoon of sugar than an artificial sweetener. Not if you're having a teaspoon 10 times a day, but say you want some sweetener in your coffee. A small scant teaspoon of sugar is going to provide the glucose, so it's going to match with the insulin. And what we're more concerned about is finding balance. We've got some great things that people are doing that I want to share. Things, and these are wonderful to think about, and thank you all for sharing them. Things like to nourish their mind and body. Lauren takes a walk with her friends. Mary has homemade bone broth and hikes regularly with yoga and devotional singing. These are things that are so healing for the body. And when we think about reducing that insulin resistance and lowering the stress so that we're not making those demands on our body for more energy, engaging the parasympathetic nervous system. Jen walks outside, eats a whole plant food diet, loves her yoga. It feels so good. Our girl, Nicole, is a yoga teacher. And Gabrielle runs twice a week and works on her posture. Ubalda receives massage and steam therapy, eats Mediterranean foods. A Mediterranean whole foods diet is a wonderful way to bring those nourishing complex carbohydrates into foods. Veronica, Pilates, workouts, probiotics, bone broth. Eats the way her body likes, at least 4 days per week. Good for you, Veronica. Hiking, switching from coffee, water, no later than noon. I guess coffee earlier, and then switching to water. Love it. Someone else is rowing, has added rowing to their exercise routine. So Malu says, I have a patient going through perimenopause on a keto diet. She's complaining about visceral fat. She still has a fasting blood sugar of 98 with a normal hemoglobin A1C. What could be causing this high fasting blood sugar? She's a smoker. There you might have one cause right there, is a smoker. Also, I would invite her to look at that keto diet. Is she including plants? Also, when I think about visceral fat with someone, I'm wondering, how is her parasympathetic nervous system, meaning her rest and digest? Is she eating regularly? Is she having long periods of fasting that can raise cortisol, which can also cause us to hold on to fats? So I think that there's a lot there that we could explore more. But I would really wonder about her sympathetic. Is she very stressed? Does she feel a lot of stress? And does her keto diet include a lot of plants? But I'm thinking probably that smoking's going to be one of the biggies to helping her heal more and lowering that blood sugar. Often I notice kind of smokers, they'll smoke instead of eat. Nicotine is a great anti-anxiety drug. It's excellent. It is so unhealthy, but it's a great anti-anxiety drug. So when people are concerned about their weight, they'll tend to eat, not smoke. What does the body do? It thinks, oh my gosh, we're in a famine. I'm going to hold on to this fat. I'm going to hold on to it right around my belly. So helping her to begin to let go and find out, what are the cigarettes giving her? What's the smoking giving her? And is there another way that she could nourish herself? That might be one gentle way intrinsically to help her begin to let go. Julia's been taking her fasting blood sugar reading. Since reading about insulin resistance is in the range of 95 to 107, despite not eating simple carbs and exercising daily. Never been below 94. What could be causing this? I think continuing with your whole foods, making sure that you're not over exercising, that you're taking rest days. This might be, Julia, maybe more, an appointment with an integrative practitioner to begin to problem solve, maybe with a nutritionist. Sometimes I find we feel like we're eating a really great diet, but we don't, but there may be some little things sneaking in there, or it may be how we're eating them. So I also find that a nutritionist is wonderful if you're feeling stuck, to kind of look. What key deficiencies might lead to insulin resistance? It's a little sneak peek for next time, but one of those things is chromium. Chromium is one of the minerals that we see linked with insulin resistance. And we're going to talk about that more. Veronica, thank you. I love Sam too. He's such a sweetie. He's in the next room sleeping. He went to bed early. He's an old guy. At what points can you improve upon insulin resistance only, pre-diabetes, or even? You can improve on all of it, y'all. That was the beauty of the practice that I worked in, and why I became so passionate about this, because I saw it make a difference. I saw people go from insulin resistance into normal insulin and blood sugars, from pre-diabetes back, and even from type 2 diabetes, not needing to go all the way to insulin, all the way to losing a leg, we can always have some healing, is what I believe. I may be a little too excited about that, but I sure have seen it. Have you seen patients who have symptoms of type 1 and type 2 diabetes? I have low insulin production, glucose intolerance, and normal A1C. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune condition, and that where the pancreas is affected. And there is also type 2 diabetes that the same thing happens. Unfortunately, once our beta cells are not producing the insulin, then there's less chance that we have to make a difference with lifestyle. But, you know, even if someone is requiring insulin and is requiring medication, it doesn't mean that we can't maximize our nutrition and give our body the best that we can to prevent the damage downstream. You are very welcome, Dale. This has been my pleasure. Suzanne buys yogurt with 1.5% milk fat with fruit included, has 15 grams of protein and 10 grams of sugar. So this is my recommendation on that. 10 grams of sugar is a lot, Suzanne. And what I do is recommend you get full fat if you're going to eat, if you're comfortable with dairy and do well with dairy. If you can get pastured dairy yogurt, that's even better, but full fat. And then take maybe a scant teaspoon of maple syrup, some cinnamon, and some vanilla, a little bit of vanilla extract, and then mix your fruit, your fresh fruit, maybe preferably berries. They're nice and anti-inflammatory. Mix those and kind of make up your own yogurt. That, I think, then you're not going to have so much sugar in it. And you're certainly not going to have the processed sugar. Some of the sugar that comes from milk, that's more of a natural sugar that's in the yogurt. But what you're really thinking about is that added sugar. So looking to not have that. How does estrogen influence insulin resistance? So I'll talk about that a little bit more next time. But we do see a connection between estrogen dominance and insulin resistance. And as the insulin resistance comes down, we see a lot of healing around the estrogen dominance and the polycystic ovarian syndrome as we begin to address this and also heal that fatty liver. And that does come with weight loss. And, you know, if you're finding that stubborn, you know, the weight is just holding on, like I said, I'd really recommend working with a nutritionist, talking with a nutritionist. Well, Nicole, it looks like we got through all of our questions. Did we? Oh, couple of more here.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's one more question.
Why there would be low insulin production without a type 1 diabetes, since the other that can be, there can be an autoimmune condition even under type 2 diabetes. So I'm not for sure what that would be, but you know, that I think would require more of a workup than I could really give you. You know, I can't really exactly give it medical advice. That would be something you'd want to see a practitioner for. Oh, well, Veronica, you're a registered dietitian. So this is great. I really want to say thank you to everyone who attended tonight. It has been mine and Nicole's pleasure. I'm just going to speak for Nicole because she's got that great smile going on there. But it has really been our pleasure to spend this evening with you. I love your participation. And, you know, if you guys also come up with questions later, or if you're listening to the webinar recorded, if you'd like to send questions in to info@philly-im.com, you know, I'll see what I can work in. If there are things that we really want to talk about next time, I'll make sure we address those.
Linda, it is one more question that just popped up.
Oh, Erectile dysfunction can be a clue about insulin resistance. It's not necessarily a symptom.
All right. This has been great. Thank you so much, Linda. I've learned so much about insulin resistance and probably learned a little bit about myself as well.
That was the goal, Nicole. Well, I
Okay.
look forward to seeing all of you in January. If there's anything, if you love a 20-minute consult, please go on our website and schedule that. We'd love to see you, to visit with you. Providers, please join. We've had providers as far away as Hong Kong join our meeting. Nicole helps facilitate that. You'll see Nicole, you'll see me. Dr. Tetlow leads that. It's a very different kind of group. It's for support for practitioners. So if you're any sort of healthcare provider, it's not just physicians or nurse practitioners or PAs. We have everyone comes, therapists, massage therapists, nutritionists, dietitians, everyone's welcome. We'd love to see you. And that's going to be the first Monday of every month. So with that, I think, Nicole, shall we say goodnight?
I agree. I think we should say goodnight.
All righty. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.